It's dive time again today, and I'm just about to head out and meet my buddy Sebastian to jump into the Lake of Zurich. Today we'll be testing the Paralenz Vaquita. Let's go! And here we are at the dive site, and it looks like Sebastian has already arrived. So why don't we go and say hello to him? Hello mate, how are you doing?
Hi mate, doing good. Ready for diving?
Excellent, me too. So let's go and set up our gear and hop in the water. And we've got 210 bar. And before we forget, Mr. Peanut cannot be missing this dive. Right, so before we get into the water for today's dive and testing the Paralenz for the very first time, you can see we're all ready and set up. Behind us there is all our gear. I was just asking Sebastian what his expectations are for today's first test dive of the Paralenz. And well, why don't you just tell them, Sebastian?
Yeah, so I'm excited to see how the Paralenz will be performing, or I can handle the Paralenz with the thick dry gloves on, how I can push the buttons and like how is the handling for filming and stuff. And I'm excited to see how the autofocus will perform in not as clear water as you have maybe in the ocean. So yeah, we'll see how it works.
Excellent. Fantastic, and I'm very curious to see how the DCC, their improved dynamic color correction, works here in the lake, and whether or not we're gonna get color accurate or depth accurate colors, that's the way to say it, on this dive. So let's get it done. Sure. Alright, that was quite interesting, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Alright, let's have a quick talk about our findings when it comes to the handling of the Paralenz on that first test dive. Sebastian, it's your turn.
Alright, so I never used a Paralenz before, so I was trying to use it like a normal camera with a monitor, and I try to look on the screen and film, and I find it pretty hard in any position to look to look at the screen and find the proper framing. But as you told me, you used it differently and we're pretty happy with it. So maybe it's more like you don't use it that often, and it's easier to get a proper framing with not looking at the screen. So, but overall it was very easy to use with the dry gloves and pushing the buttons and everything. So that was pretty cool. Yeah?
Excellent, yeah, I agree. I think it was fairly easy to use. I think that the dry gloves don't really give you any limitations using the camera whatsoever, because it's very easy to activate it, turn on the recording, turn it off, go through the menus, all that sort of stuff. It's very easily done even with dry gloves on. I personally, I never really looked at the screen while recording, because I'm already used to using the Dive Camera Plus, the previous model, which didn't have a screen. So I just used the camera as like a flashlight, just pointing it into the direction of what I wanted to film, and that has always worked quite well for me. We'll see once we have a look at the footage that we've recorded today if that's the case as well on this dive here. Other than that, I was a little disappointed that at one point the camera gave me the SD card full sign, and I was a bit stunned because that never happened to me before with a 16GB card, having it filled up on a single dive. I'll definitely add up the amount of time that I filmed on all the different clips, and we'll let you know how much that time actually is, because I would have liked to just continue filming a little bit, but maybe I just need to get a larger SD card, so I take this on as my mistake here. Other than that, we'll head into the office now, have a look at the footage, and then we can talk about the quality of the footage and see how that's all turned out, because we can't really say much about that at this point here. But before we do, it's chocolate time. But it's no Swiss chocolate, it's actually German chocolate, because Sebastian brought it and not myself. All right, let's get it done. So, after coming back to the office and looking at the footage, let's quickly talk about what we found and just have a quick discussion about that. Well, first of all, I was a bit surprised seeing that most of the shots, or pretty much all of them, had a bit of a reddish tint to them, which was the sign for me that the DCC wasn't really working in the way it should have. Now, after having seen this and not being happy with the results, I reached out to Paralenz, talked to the guys at Paralenz, and they confirmed what I was suspecting, that because we were having other camera systems with us with lights on them, so that might be the reason why there was a reddish tint in them. It's not something that we weren't able to correct, and if you look back at the images, you'll see that most of them don't really have that reddish tint in them anymore. We were able to correct that, but it did take some time, and it was sort of a bit time consuming going through all the footage and correcting it manually that way. After having talked to Paralenz, we went back for another dive, and this time we didn't take any lights with us. We just used ambient light and the DCC on, and it worked much better. The footage just looks a lot more consistent in terms of the colors that the DCC was able to produce, because there wasn't any artificial light coming in and going out of the frame and confusing the DCC. So that's the lesson that we've learned here. If you're using the DCC, make sure to not have any artificial lights with you with the Vaquita. If on the other hand you have lights with you, then turn off the DCC and use the manual white balance, set it to the Kelvin degree of the lights that you're going to be using to make sure that you get the best possible results. On the second test dive, I also took a color checker with me and just placed it in the frame, so to see how the color gets reproduced by the DCC of the Vaquita. And even though it didn't really get the perfect color, it was really easy to correct it to get a very nice looking image and very accurate colors afterwards in post-production with a simple one-click automatic color correction in Final Cut Pro 10. So from that standpoint, I'm really happy with the colors that are coming out of the Vaquita at this point. As I said before, it's just important to remember to not have any artificial light in there if you're using the DCC, and vice versa if you're not using the DCC, having some artificial lights and using the manual white balance setting. Even on this second dive, all of the footage that we recorded had to be color corrected slightly. It was much easier than the footage that we had taken on the first dive. That correction took a lot longer. The footage from that second dive was much easier to correct, but we still had to correct it a little bit. To be fair though, we have to say that the conditions that we used the Vaquita in here at the Lake of Zurich, in greenish, fairly murky water, wasn't probably the best conditions to test it out. I'm really looking forward to actually testing this out thoroughly in Egypt on our production trip that is coming up, or that we're actually probably on while you guys are watching this. So there we'll have a lot more chances to test out all the features and the image quality of the Vaquita in blue, clear, and in particular warm water, and I'm really looking forward to that. There's going to be more reviews coming up here on the channel about the Vaquita and how you can use it best to get the best out of this small but very powerful camera. And if you don't want to miss out on these reviews, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you get notified when we upload the next video here. If today's video was useful to you, please do not forget to hit that like button. You know, it does mean a lot to me. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you very much for your time and for watching. And until next time, happy diving and have fun capturing all your amazing underwater adventures. I'll see you in the next video.
Chocolate, 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 chocolate.